Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. We are back with the Fantasy Facts presented by Fantasy Data. Today, we are talking about the playoff push. It's that time of season. What are you doing to get into the playoffs? And we have a special guest today joining us. But first,
Fantasy Facts with your hosts, Pat Loftus and Seth Keller.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are here today talking with Andy Tripp. Andy is a friend that we've made on Twitter with the one and only, I don't know if you can see it, it's the Scott Fishbowl, rocking my Scott Fishbowl shirt today. Just worked out serendipitously that I threw it on this morning. But Andy Tripp is in the pick number 2 group with me, and I was like, hey, I need a buddy to jump on the show, and Andy was gracious enough to jump on. So welcome to the show, Andy. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Awesome, Seth. Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for having me on tonight. Very much enjoy being here. Big fantasy football, fantasy sports fan in general. I've been playing fantasy football for well over 10 years, been in the dynasty world for a few years, and this is lucky enough to be my first year in the Scott Fishbowl. Nice. So, shout out to Scott Fish for kind of bringing us, the community, together. And so very happy to be here tonight and talk about kind of the playoff push that's ahead of us.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we jump into talking about the playoff push, before we do the opening question, we're going to throw out a little bit. Go ahead and give the show a follow. It's scrolling across the screen. If you are watching, if you are listening in, give us a follow at the Fantasy Facts. Give Fantasy Data a follow as well at Fantasy Data NFL. Check them out, fantasydata.com. All of the numbers that I pull, unless I say otherwise, are coming from Fantasy Data because they have everything you could look for in terms of statistics and projections, injury news and updates, and also they have betting data, which is a fun little sister site that has live lines updated as well. So go ahead and check them out. And if you're one of those people, and there's leagues that I have as well, where your league, you're kind of waving the white flag already, don't think your fantasy season is over. Go ahead, sign up for Underdog Fantasy. They have daily drafts. They have pick'em. They have playoff drafts. They have basketball. They have everything you could possibly want. Use the promo code FAQS. That's FAQS. Get yourself a 100% deposit match up to your first $100. And with that, we are going to jump right into the show then. Andy, are you ready for your first opening question?
Yeah.
All right.
Let's hear it. I'm excited.
You ready? So what we do, we crack a beer when we do this, and you got yours ready to go.
Yeah.
It's time to crack one open with the opening question. There you go. Cheers, buddy.
Cheers.
So today's opening question, since we're in the Scott Fishbowl 2 chat, we're both in the Scott Fishbowl. Week 10 just finished up. Playoffs are right around the corner in Scott Fishbowl. Do we play week 12 or is week 12 the actual playoffs? I'm going to have to check that now.
Playoffs start week 12, I believe.
They start week 12. Exactly.
So last week of the regular season.
Last week, which means that I am probably going to miss the playoffs by a game, assuming, maybe a presumptuous assumption, but assuming that I'm going to get 2 wins this coming week, I will probably end up missing the playoffs by a single win because I will finish at 12-10. How about you, Andy? How is your Scott Fishbowl team doing?
So I started out strong. I was 4-0 after 2 weeks. I was feeling really good. I'm currently sitting at 8-12, but my points are looking solid enough that I might have a chance. I'm looking at it on the leaderboard. I'm in 18th. So 1,318th. So if I have a good week, I think I'm in. If I have a bad week, it might be tough.
Yeah. I need the wins, and the most heart-wrenching part of it for me is the fact that I have 2 weeks that I've lost by a point or a point and a half or less. Week 1, when I realized there's a point in every man's life when he realizes he is in too many fantasy leagues and he needs to adjust. that was week one for me because I started a player that I shouldn't have started week one in the Scott Fish Bowl. It was one of the leagues that I just didn't get to in time. It was a sad, sloppy mistake, but it was a learning experience, and that's what all mistakes are. As long as you can learn from them, it's
We've
okay.
all been there.
Yeah, it happens. But I lost week one by less than a point. I lost this past week by less than a point, and now I am probably going to end up finishing out the year at 12-12 is what I'm expecting. And yeah, I am not happy about it. I feel like I've made a pretty solid playoff push in Scott Fish Bowl. But unfortunately, I think unless there's some kind of backdoor out that I can slide into the playoffs with, I think I'm going to be sitting this one out, which is sad because in the first two Scott Fish Bowls I was in the top 100. I made it all the way through the playoffs to being the last 100 people left 2 years in a row. And now I'm going to end up with 2 years of missing the playoffs, which just sucks.
That's first of all, it's impressive to do that the first 2 years. Anytime you can get that far in a competition with incredible players and talent and people that generally know what they're doing, it's very impressive. But I need some luck. I very much have enjoyed the process and the people and getting to interact with everybody regardless. And definitely having that upside and firepower, and sometimes some injuries can make or break a roster. I drafted Kenneth Walker in the 9th or 10th round, who's been looking good, but I made a nice bet on Darren Waller, who hasn't looked very good. So can't win them all.
Yeah, no, and that's one of the things I do in Scott Fish Bowl that I feel like it's become a joke with some of the guys that I play more fantasy with is my ability to punt tight end as long as humanly possible. I think I've been in like the last 10 or 20 to pick a tight end the past couple of years, just because I'll let it slide that far just because of the randomness and variance you get in tight end scoring, that if you don't pay up for the Kelseys, the Andrews, and this year, like, you can't even talk about really Waller or Pitts or anybody like that because they haven't produced. But if you didn't pay up for those guys, like, I'm not paying up for Irv Smith. I'm not paying up for, like, Cole Kmet is finally doing something,
Sure.
but chances are he was probably dropped about 5 weeks ago. So the fact that he's had a bunch of touchdowns recently,
Yep.
Means hopefully you get him for your playoff push here. But, if you drafted him, that was probably a waste of a pick in the, 10th to 12th round.
Absolutely. He was not worth it until the last couple weeks. I typically like to play leagues that are more tight end premium or tight end scoring, like the Scott Fish Bowl is.
Mhm.
But I've been riding Gerald Everett.
Yeah.
I got Justin Herbert at the 2.
Yep.
And then I tried to create as many stacks as I could, and Gerald Everett's worked out just fine. I think I don't know specifically, but if I had to guess, probably somewhere in the tight end, 7 or 8 on the year.
Yeah, he's up there, and then 2 other guys that I'll throw into that also, and I think are great in this conversation too, because we're going to be talking about playoff pushes this whole way through. So I think they're great conversation pieces for the tight ends because you have Gerald Everett. Gerald Everett, we're going to talk about him in the news and notes, unfortunately, though. But Gerald Everett has been a great play. Hayden Hurst has been a great play. He was one of the guys that I punted really late to pick up. It was also really nice too because I've been on the Hayden Hurst Family Foundations. They do a mental health podathon along with the FF Face-Off. So I've been on that for back-to-back years now. So technically, even though like I do the overnight hours when nobody's really listening and like Hayden Hurst has like prime time, I've been on the same podcast as Hayden Hurst and a bunch of other really big name people 2 years in a row now.
That's really cool.
Yeah, no, it's definitely cool. Granted, not at the same time.
Sure.
Like 12 hours later, but it's really cool. Great opportunity, raises some money. Check it out. FF Face Off Mental Health Podathon. It's a really great time. But yeah, Hayden Hurst is there. And then another one, and this one I think is maybe one of the bigger discussion points, and I'll lead us into the news and notes. Tyler Higbee was phenomenal. He had a bit of a stinker recently, but he was phenomenal for most of the season. But I'm concerned with Higbee now because of two things going on with the Rams. One, and this is our news and notes jumping in right now. Stafford is still in concussion protocol, which not good to not have your starting quarterback.
Absolutely.
And
Cooper
the
Kupp.
biggest news of the weekend,
Cooper Kupp.
Mr. Cooper Kupp. I'm going to throw this out there to you. And it's a question that I feel like I've gotten a couple of times through like DMs and stuff like that. I've talked about it in a couple other Twitter groups. Is Cooper Kupp droppable right now? He's on IR. Just so we know, he is on IR. He's guaranteed to miss at least 14 weeks. Or sorry, at least 4 weeks. So he won't be back till at least week 14.
I personally would never drop a player of Cooper Kupp status because it would upset me watching him in the fantasy playoffs go off on somebody else's roster if someone had the fab. If I had Cooper Kupp and I was a team that was trying to make a playoff push and lacked the depth and needed some points, I would go to the first or second place team, someone that's close to already securing it, sell them on how good Cooper Kupp is, and say, look how
not
great.
A hard sell, by the way. Not a hard sell.
Not a hard sell at all. When Cooper Kupp plays, he's one of the most consistent fantasy players you want in your lineup.
Yep.
Not at all. And say he's going to win you a championship if he comes back.
Yep.
And then you get a few depth, maybe a piece or two to plug in your lineup that can get you some points in the meantime. That's what I would do with Cooper Kupp. And I think if you're in the top, 3 or 4 teams, you kind of got to hold. Like, what do you think there?
No, I think that's a great play. The one thing that I will say, if you do not have an IR spot, and you are making a playoff push. So this is my philosophy with a lot of the playoff push mentality that not everybody agrees with, and that's cool because that's what makes sports fun. Is not everybody does it the same way.
Absolutely.
When I think about the playoff push, if I am 1 or 2 games behind the playoffs, I am trying to sell Kupp if I can. Right? I think that's a great idea, but I'm going to throw it out there. I do not think Kupp comes back in this season. If he does, it looks like the Rams are just dead in the water. And that's with Cooper Kupp. To bring him back at this point, I feel like you're putting one of your best assets at risk for injury. And granted, every football player plays the game to win. They play the game because they get a game check. But if he's injured, there's still injury payouts as well. And so I don't see much of the benefit for the Rams of continuing to play him. And so not only is it a guaranteed he's out 4 weeks, but it looks like there's potential for that 4 weeks to turn into the next 7 weeks, which means, that's the season.
And I agree with you completely. And I'll second that with a Cooper Kupp, but be Matt Stafford. If I'm, if I'm Sean McVay and, you just won a Super Bowl, you've had your success. 2 of your, your best players that took you to that Super Bowl are not going to be at full capacity, even if they're back.
Yeah.
Like you would expect them still not being who they usually are. Why not kind of wait it out till next season and everything in the Rams are a wash. You said that well.
Yeah. Yeah, the Rams right now, I just pulled up their record and schedule. The Rams are 3-6. They're last in their division, and their next games come against the Saints, the Chiefs, the Seahawks, the Raiders. Maybe they can pull a win out against the Saints, depending. But if they don't have Cooper Kupp, they don't have Matt Stafford, they're not winning that game with their running backs because their offensive line is trash. Like that offensive line is wolf, right?
It's bad.
So
It's completely garbage. The one piece of the Rams that I do have a couple waiver claims out there this evening, because I am desperate for wide receivers in a couple leagues, is Van Jefferson.
yeah.
I think he's gonna get an uptick in targets, and with that volume, you hope he can do something with it.
Yeah, and I think that's another great piece for the playoff push thing. Now, like right now, now's the time. Like Van Jefferson becomes a much higher waiver priority, especially like Andy just said. If you're in a desperate mode for wide receivers, Van Jefferson, he could move right into that plug and play type of situation. So I'll ask you this: Allen Robinson, Van Jefferson.
I feel like I don't love this question because I was very high on the Allen Robinson hype train to begin the year. So it's like I've had to eat my crow all season as Allen Robinson has not played well.
Yeah.
I very much think that Van Jefferson has a lot of talent, and I've liked him for a long time. That I think I might be well. Also, Van Jefferson's more than likely to be more rosterable in a lot of leagues, and if they're both available on the waiver wire, I'd probably put in a slightly higher bid than Allen Robinson. But I think you're more likely to get Van Jefferson, and you're probably not making a trade for either one.
No,
like
yeah,
that.
I would say maybe it's a throw-in. Like if you were trying to sell Cooper Kupp to a team that has a roster spot to burn, that has a depth piece or something like that, maybe you can get them tossed in as a throw-in, but it's not going to be the central part to any trade option, I would say.
That's exactly how I would see it.
And I need to look now. So Cooper Kupp has 812 yards. The next highest receiver, not a receiver, is Tyler Higbee with 385. Then Allen Robinson at 292. Then Ben Skorenik at 245. But
they've also not really had a quarterback with Matt Stafford hurt and having a bad elbow most of the year. And
yeah, like it's been tough. I mean, Van Jefferson's only played 3 games, so he has a little bit of leeway there. But he's a guy that I was really high on. Even coming out, his dad is a wide receivers coach. And you can see it in the way that he runs his routes. He's very technical in the way that he runs his routes. I don't think he'll ever reach the upper echelon of wide receivers.
Sure.
But he's going to be a decent fantasy play. And like you said, they're losing that number one guy that's accounting for essentially this entire offense. So there's going to be room for somebody to take off.
Absolutely. Cooper Kupp always gets an extreme target share percentage that is not going to go away when he's there. When he's not there, it's open up.
Yeah.
And you expect it's going to be spread around. Nobody's going to be Cooper Kupp.
No. All right, let's keep it moving. Juju Smith-Schuster was concussed. We're just going to hit all the wide receivers in a group here. Juju was concussed. Concussions, I say it all the time. They're funny. They're fickle. There's no telling what we're going to get with the concussion. It looked bad. To me, it looked like it should have been a flag, which wasn't thrown, especially considering some of the other flags that were thrown. But this whole weekend seemed like wonky officiating. I hope that he's able to come back and play. If not, maybe the people that have been calling for a Sky Moore coming out party, maybe they'll get it, but I kind of don't think so. It looks like it's going to be Tony.
That was in my notes of my players I wrote down for playoff push was Tony. He's like, he seems to be the guy. The video of him adjusting his gloves mid catch to pull it down. Like, who does that?
Yeah. No, that was great. I think that's another good one. He's probably owned in a bunch of leagues right now, but definitely a guy if you haven't if he hasn't been picked up on your waiver wires, if he's still floating around there, definitely a guy to go target. Jerry Jeudy was carted off the field, but according to head coach Nathaniel Hackett, is day to day, which sounds great. Kind of the Rams and Broncos are in very much the same situation, though. Of those offenses are just atrocious. So if Jeudy can't go, maybe it opens things up a little bit more for Sutton. But honestly, like Wilson has just not been very good. This whole offense has just not been good. I saw, I think I saw, I think it was on Instagram, so maybe more believable after the whole Twitter blue thing. But there was an Instagram post that was something along the lines of the Denver Broncos would be 8-1 if their offense scored 19 points in regulation every game.
I saw
only
that.
19 points.
I saw that, and I think it was 18 or something
Was
like
it
it was
18?
something like that. It was something that was like not crazy at all.
Yeah.
I'm personally shook that Russ has not like succeeded in Denver. For you can see right behind me in my Golden Gate Bridge photo. I'm a huge 49ers fan. That's my team, and so Russ has been a thorn in our side for a long time, and I think he's a good football player. And this year, he just does not look like himself. It's really shocking. And so, if you turn on that switch and say let him throw, I love Jeudy coming out of school. I thought the talent was there.
Yep.
The one that I would love to see break out. One Greg Dulcich is having a great Dulcich. He's looking like great as this rookie tight end class is quite good.
Yeah.
With Otton and Dulcich and Bellinger.
My boy Otton.
And then I think McBride is due for a breakout with Ertz out now.
Yep.
But Dulcich and then KJ Hamler would be the one that I would be excited to break out. Personally, I got a bunch of Melvin Gordon shares that I was hoping were going to be great once Javonte went down. That hasn't looked very good. Kind of stuck holding the bag at this point.
Yeah. There's not much you can do with Gordon right now because you can't start him because he's not getting enough points. I mean, yes, you can start him because there's times where you're just absolutely desperate. And it's like, hey, you know what? 9 points ain't that bad. It's better than 0. So I'll roll him out there.
But like deeper leagues with more, 14 teams, start 11, start 12 kind of leagues, you got to start some rough starts sometimes.
Yeah, no, and he's definitely one of them. I'm not nearly as high on KJ Hamler, but I do like the Greg Dulcich play. It's not great with the Broncos right now. They are third in the AFC West. The only team they're beating right now is the Raiders because the Raiders are 2-7 and the Raiders have given up. What was it? Was it 3 17-0 leads they've given up this season? It's completely asinine what the Raiders have done this year. I can't. I'm still having trouble fathoming this AFC West and just what happened to them because they were everybody's. I feel like they were everybody's pick of like if every team here has a wild card shot, like every team here has a playoff shot, and now it's like you have the Chiefs and the Chargers. The Chargers might get a playoff spot.
It was projected to be probably the toughest division in football going into the season with that group of quarterbacks. And, Derek Carr is getting teamed up with his college wide receiver and Devontae Adams. And Adams has looked great, but that's pretty much the only bright spot of that offense. And Josh Jacobs. Nobody talks about Josh Jacobs consistently putting up numbers, and it feels like he just does it year after year and proves me wrong.
Yeah. So, okay, that's really funny because I was about to be like, I've been that guy every year of like, what there's a thing that happens, and I need to write like a whole like thesis about this because I've seen it. Like we were talking before the show. Like I'm about to celebrate my 20th year playing fantasy football, and I feel like I've seen it like all the time, and it's just gotten worse and worse. Where a rookie running back will get people excited. Their second year, people thrust them into this like this elite tier, this elite set of expectations that they can't live up to. And then they just fall off completely. Not the player, everybody that was cheering that player on. If you watch Josh Jacobs, like the way people talked about him as a rookie, it was like, okay. He had a good rookie year. Then people threw him in his second year of like he's an auto first round pick. He's got to be up there with everybody else. You have to draft him. It's that same like thumping the table mentality of you have to pick him, and then he can't live up to that. But he was still a top. I think it was a top 15 back, something like that.
That you're spot on with that analysis, and I'm a huge college football fan, maybe even more than the NFL in some ways. And I very much like win leagues by finding rookie running backs that are thriving. I have Kenneth Walker across many teams, including the Scott Fish. And like, if you can find those guys, the people that had, Breece Hall in the, fourth, fifth round ADP before he got hurt, that was a league winning pick.
Yeah.
And then, next year they get thrust into that thing where they're top 8, top 9 overall. They don't hit expectations. People do it. And I know I win on those guys. And I personally go, they're just not worth a first round pick the next year.
Yeah.
And so maybe I got to wait a year or two, fall back, and then do it. I do the same, with even, receivers that you find that break out in like year 3 or 4 that you pick in the 4th or 5th round. Next year they're in the, first, second round, and you're like, I just can't.
Yeah.
The expectations of how they have to perform to be able to exceed ADP are pretty tough.
Right, and that's I think that's going to be the tagline of, I don't know, maybe I'll make it a book. I don't know. That's probably way too much, but they didn't fail to live up to ADP. They failed to live up to your expectations. That's the issue. Like it's not that like, and yes, ADP is baked into the expectations are baked into the ADP, but that's exactly it. And then their ADP the next year falls off so much because people are like, oh, he's a bust, he's terrible, and then it's like he's a 5th round pick, so he was a great his rookie year. He was good his second year, but now you have him in committee backfield type of status. Like, and no one's going to take touches from him, and it happens every year. And I'm going to throw this out there. You know who it's going to be next year? Najee Harris. Najee Harris, good rookie year, propped up on volume, absolutely. This year, complete bust.
You're probably spot on. Najee's one of my most owned players across all leagues. He's one of my favorite players in the NFL. Fun fact, I actually watched him play in high school. He played my brother's school. They had no one that could tackle him. You knew what the play call was every play, and just nobody could get him down. I think they won 59-3 against my brother's school.
Wow, that's a stomping. All right, real quick, we're going to jump in. We got a trade question from Z Smitty. Would you trade Waddle, Patterson, and Godwin for Henry and Kirk? I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that this is Derrick Henry, because if this was like Hunter Henry, trying to think of any other Henrys that would make this work, it's got to be Derrick Henry. Also throughout the team here, Dak, love it as a Cowboys fan, love it.
Yeah,
good play. Mixon, Connor, Patterson, Kenyon Drake. Kenyon Drake's one of my guys that I think is going to finish out the year pretty well. And yes, Derrick Henry. Thank you, Smitty, for throwing that in there. Chase, Hopkins, Godwin, Pickens, Waddle, Garrett Wilson. This is a great question. Let me go.
Dynasty or redraft? I'm assuming redraft.
Good question, Smitty. If you're still there, dynasty or redraft. So Waddle, Patterson, and Godwin. For Henry and Kirk, I mean, Kirk has been very consistent. Let's work with the assumption that it's redraft at the
Yeah.
moment, and then we can always talk before.
Kirk,
Standard PPR sounds like standard PPR, probably redraft, standard
yeah,
redraft. Yep. Okay, there we go.
yeah, I think
Redraft.
that makes complete sense.
Yep.
You have the depth to give up Waddle and Godwin to upgrade running back at Henry. I think absolutely, because then you pair him with Mixon and you have a great combo, and then you still have Chase, Hopkins, Pickens, Kirk Wilson. And I think Pickens is going to get more and more shares as the season goes on and he continues to develop. What do you think, Seth?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was trying to work out in my head is like, what does this roster look like afterwards? And it's Henry and Mixon as your kind of auto start running backs. Assuming it's starting three wide receivers, you're going Chase. Well, Chase when he comes back healthy, Chase, Hopkins, and who was it? Kirk is probably going to be your option there, and then flexing either Pickens or Connor or Garrett Wilson and kind of being able to rotate those guys around. I think it's a really solid play as things move forward. I'm not a huge fan of looking at strength of schedule, but I was looking for it in preparation of this, playoff push themed show. Fantasy Pros has the Tennessee Titans as the best schedule for running backs. I looked at their schedule. It doesn't look the best to me, but that's what Fantasy Pros says is that it's a 5-star matchup for the rest of the season for Derrick Henry, which, I mean, that sounds pretty nice right there also to have, have that solid RB1 that is going to be there week in and week out.
He's won leagues before.
Yeah. I just want to see if I'm misremembering. The Titans already had their bye week, right? I'm pretty sure. I've stayed away from the Titans offense. I don't really have much Henry across any leagues, and I had some Treylon Burks earlier, and then once he got hurt, I had to drop him, and the offense has been not one I've been investing in new. Yeah, their bye week was week 6, so you're also getting a guy. You're getting a guy that's going to be that's going to be in your roster to close out the season. I really like that play. The only other consideration I would have to think is Chase is your biggest boom wide receiver that you would very much need in your lineup. And if you're not already have a playoff spot nearly clinch, I'd be slightly more hesitant because you need, Waddle and Godwin. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that upgrade at running back is just such a great play, though. And the Bengals have already had their bye week, so you're basically rolling out Mixon and Henry for the rest of the season, and working it in however else there. So thank you for the question, Z Smitty. Jump in with any more. All right, let's try and hit a few more injury news real quick. Mike Williams says he's going to practice this week, which is great because he's been riding the pine forever. And honestly, Justin Herbert, I feel like needs a wide receiver that's not Josh Palmer or DeAndre Carter. Like they need Mike Williams. They need Keenan Allen. They need something to get that offense rolling. Speaking of running backs, throwing it out there, Najee has a little quote knee discomfort, according to Mike Tomlin. I don't know what that means anymore at this point. I'm not sure. I don't know if Tomlin is trying to soften the blow to work Jaylen Warren in more. I don't know if he's just like trying to take the media off of Najee a little bit, because Najee's, especially from the fantasy perspective, is just getting roasted. All of the tweets and videos about him in the open field and getting like hit by a car, not like him getting hit by a car, but like it's like Najee in the open field and it's like this other dude trying to jump a car. Like it's been nonstop. But go ahead, Andy. What do you think?
I think I'm a big, as I said earlier, big Najee fan. I think that he's been playing somewhat injured most of the season.
Yeah.
And it's not one that Mike Tomlin or the media is necessarily going to say. And I hate to speculate on those things because he's out there in the field every week in his pads. Like
Yep.
it's a bad thing to necessarily, but he doesn't look like the same player that we've usually seen. And when you get that foot injury in the beginning of the year and he's like trying to forcing himself to, go play and get a game check and be out there, and I applaud him. It's respectable. But I don't blame them for wanting to scale back on their first round running back for now towards the end of the season. As much as it may suck for fantasy owners, fantasy owners want to see their first round pick out there, thriving and scoring points and touchdowns and being the player we saw last year. But at the same time, we'd all rather see Najee healthy and back next year, thriving and succeeding. Even if it means that we see 6-7 weeks of him not being the guy we know. That's my guess, hypothesis.
Yeah, and I definitely lean into it seems like he's playing dinged up, right? Which is a lot of football players play dinged up. Yep. It seems like it's starting to kind of wear on him a little bit. And I also think the Pittsburgh Steelers as a team, they're going through growing pains right now. Like there's a lot of things that they have some high hopes, they have some budding aspirations, but they also have some boneheaded plays that are just not helping you win football games. And when you get, when you're losing and the people around you aren't performing up to where you think everybody should be at, those things wear on you a little bit more. And, I don't want to say that that's necessarily what's happening with Najee, but like this offense is stumbling pretty significantly at times. So,
I had this conversation with a friend a couple days ago, and he's like, well, but how are they going to explain to their first round running back that he's getting benched for, a seventh round or undrafted Jaylen Warren? And I said, if there's anyone that can handle it, it's Mike Tomlin. He dealt with Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown in his locker room year after year. Like this guy is a professional and very, very good of dealing with people. And if he goes, hey, Najee, go get yourself healthy. Let's work on this. We're going to reduce your workload. It's not great for fantasy owners. I'm also not sure it makes Jaylen Warren necessarily a playoff push piece either.
Yeah.
As I've handcuffed him in some leagues.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly what it is. He's a playoff push piece. Wow, that alliteration is tricky. We're gonna have to work on that one. He's definitely one of those pieces because he is a handcuff. Like this is handcuff season. This is, trying to find those running backs that if something were to happen, that's the guy that I want to have on my roster because he does step into that workhorse role. And especially with running backs, really across all positions, but especially running backs, volume is always king. It always has been. It always will be.
Absolutely.
If you can blend volume with efficiency, you have a stud. But
Absolutely.
No matter what, volume gets you to that level, right? And so a guy like Jaylen Warren should not be on waivers because if anything were to happen to Najee Harris, he does step into that same exact role. And now, you have at least a flexible play. There's still 3 more weeks of bye weeks coming up that you have to be able to navigate. And having Jaylen Warren for next to nothing sitting on your roster is an option. And that's what you need right now is you need options. So I think Jaylen Warren, although I agree with you, I don't think he's like, oh, he's going to be that dude that's going to get you into the playoffs. He has an opportunity if something opens the door for him.
Very well said. I look at Rashad Penny last year.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been a Rashad Penny fan. Didn't necessarily believe in the talent. He gets 20, 25 carries a game, and he won a lot of people championships.
Yep. And it was that opportunity. Absolutely.
The volume.
Yep. 2 more kind of pieces of running back news that I think both of them lead to, that kind of playoff push, picking up safety blankets.
Yeah.
One, Leonard Fournette has a hip pointer. He's not expected to miss time, which is probably telling of what the football doctors can actually do, or just that the Google search that I did and bothering my wife, who's a physical therapist, going, so wait, though, what is a hip pointer, though? So a hip pointer is a bruise to the iliac crest, which is the
What is that?
bony part of your hip. Like if you reach down and feel your hip, that little bony piece that sticks out right there, depending on how many, I gotta lift a fold and then get in there to touch it. But like that's where he has a bruise, and they can get pretty bad to the point where they say that, like, the only things you can really do for it are pain management, ice, compress, and rest it, right? And so that's what he's going to be doing. Typical time frame, again, according to my quick Google search, was 1 to 3 weeks. Him not missing any time is telling of the pain management techniques that are available, I feel like, at the NFL level.
Also, the Bucks have a bye coming up this week.
That is true.
So he's already got 1 week baked in. So we're looking at minimum 2.
Yeah.
I still do think if Rashad White's out there, he needs to be rostered in all leagues. He looks great on the field. Also, you got to figure out what's coach speak and what's not, right? If you have a star player, even look at if you're Doug McDermott with Josh Allen this past week, if there's a chance you're going to have Josh Allen playing, even a 10%, 5% chance, you would not tell the other team that you're not going to have. You got to have them game plan for your star, because even if you then put out your Case Keenum, they don't know how to play for Case Keenum because they haven't studied him all week, and sometimes that can be incredibly effective on the field, where there's just no sample size. So I think Rashad White, he looks like he could be Tom Brady's little James White. That's the what I kind of gather from the film I see, maybe the way he runs. I very much like him as a piece of that offense. That's I have him on a couple teams and have just kind of sat on him all season waiting for this moment to happen. And if you're looking for a running back, also not a bad time to trade with the bye week. Sometimes people don't realize that Leonard, it's the bye week. Leonard Fournette's hurt. You can say he doesn't have a good track record this season, but that doesn't really matter. When it comes to winning championships, really all that matters is the last, 3 weeks of the season.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I was just trying to look it up. Rashad White didn't have a single reception in that Seahawks game this weekend. He had 22 attempts for 105 yards. Not to completely refute your point, because in earlier weeks, 3, 5, like he's being used in that change of pace role when Lenny's out there. But when Lenny went down, he stepped in as the rusher. Like he was the workhorse back there. He just didn't pull in any passes in that game. So I think Rashad White could end up being a pretty dynamic piece, especially if Lenny Fournette loses any time here. And I think that's the big if. And the kind of worst case, I feel like, scenario is getting that dreaded mix, because now it's going to be is it the Lenny show? Is it playoff Lenny? Is it Rashad White? Like, which guy are you going to be able to play? And I don't know if the Tampa Bay offense instills that much confidence in me right now. Just watching what they've been over the year, they have all the pieces, but when they put all the they have a full hand of spades, it seems like. But when they go to play the cards that they have, it's like, how are you losing hands here? Like, how are you losing?
Absolutely. And you got to think that Tom's going to, maybe it's, Tom and Giselle, but maybe they got to think that they get it together towards the end of the year and that they find a way to make a run deep in the playoffs. I could also see, though, with, veteran versus rookie running backs, sometimes it's more opportunistic for the NFL team to play the rookie and give them more carries through the stretch, saving a guy like Leonard Fournette for the playoffs because they want to give him. But how does that mean for fantasy owners? It means fantasy owners want Rachaad White for the playoffs, for the fantasy playoffs. It's not, Lenny Fournette's workload is going to be limited. That's how I see it.
Yeah, it definitely could be. It'll be really, really interesting to see where that goes. Another one that'll be really interesting to see where it goes. Khalil Herbert was placed on IR. David Montgomery, who was losing a bunch of touches to Khalil White, now steps back into that workhorse role type of situation because I don't see the Bears. I don't see them really putting like Tristan Ebner into that role that Khalil Herbert was in because I was not ready for what Khalil Herbert put on the field. Like I was like, I get it. Like he's got a little twitch to him. He's good. And then there was times where it's like, wow, he just like he looks really, he just looks good. Like he looked a lot better than David Montgomery when he was on the field.
He has looked really good. And you got to think with the whole Justin Fields explosion that's going on, that teams are going to start to learn to game plan against him more and more, such that folks like Herbert and Montgomery are going to get more touches on the ground where you can run fakes and stuff. So that's where I think that there's very much a way that Montgomery eats in the playoffs. And I'd be curious his schedule. I think Montgomery, he's a great pure runner. He's going to get some catches. He's a decent receiver of the ball. This year, he's not looked like himself, though. It's not what's up with him? Like Herbert looks like this dynamic, fast, young, like little guy. And Montgomery is his usual self. And I think Montgomery is one of your typical, like, underrated fantasy guys that consistently puts up like high-end RB2 statistics with some RB1 weeks. He had that one year he was like RB4 because he had a stupid strength of schedule down the stretch. It was like I found that in a super flex league. Granted, might have bit me back last year, but I traded Tom Brady straight up for him because I needed a running back. I was like, Brady's got a couple years back. Running's back got short lifespans. I had some great quarterbacks on that team.
I think that one, good for you. Sounds like it was a fun little stretch for you. But just pulling some numbers for David Montgomery, despite being 20th in attempts, which, by the way, holy cow, Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley, wow. Like their usage is absolutely crazy. Both of them are over 200 touches, and the next closest person is at like 180 or something like that. Trying to do quick math, and that's Dameon Pierce. That's my guy. Love me some Dameon Pierce.
Absolutely, gotta love Dameon Pierce.
Yeah, I was one of the few people that was like, stop knocking Dameon Pierce. Taking him in the 7th round really isn't that bad of a plan. And most of the time you didn't need to. Like you still could have gotten him later. But anyways, David Montgomery is sitting at RB 33 with 115 attempts. Khalil Herbert was at RB 23 with 108. And it's not like Khalil Herbert was catching the ball. He only has 6 catches. Montgomery has 15. So
I got a question.
Herbert was just a much better rusher.
Do you think that those vacated carries go directly towards David Montgomery, or do a handful of them now go to Justin Fields?
I don't think you can give that many of them to Justin Fields. Like Justin Fields, I got it open already. Let's take a quick little look. Justin Fields, he's rushing the ball about 10 times a game. Like if you look at his range, it is max in Miami at 15, and the least he's run is 7 back in week 4 against the Giants. So he's going to run the ball around 10 times ish a game. I don't think we're going to see Justin Fields suddenly go to 20 touches a game because I don't think that's healthy for the Bears. I don't think that's healthy for Justin Fields, even though Justin Fields looks like he's built differently. He doesn't look, he doesn't look like Josh Allen built like that type of dude, but he does look like he's built
But could it
differently.
go? But so Herbert had, you said 105. We're through week 10, so it's about 10 rushes a game. Could it go five Fields, 5 Montgomery? Who knows?
It's possible. I guess maybe part of it is like I don't want to see Fields run the ball 20 times. Not that it's not exciting and electric when he does it, but it's just not. It's not something that I want to see because every time you're kind of sitting there going, "Oh God, this is the one that's going to take him out," and or like he had one where the linebacker they're just like, and boom. And it's like, why are you doing that? Like you already got the first down. Get down.
I completely agree. You're a quarterback. You're supposed to have pretty much the longest lifespan of almost any position in the league. Let's be safe here. I don't blame you.
Yeah, I would say we're probably going to see more of an uptick with Montgomery, maybe getting him closer to like 15, 20 touches a game, and then probably see like Tristan Ebner worked in there a little bit, maybe like 5 times a game, something like that. I don't think it's going to be the almost 10-10 split that we had with Herbert and Montgomery. All right. A few more things because they all go in this same playoff push thing. What a week for tight ends. So Jarrett Everett was dealing with, I believe it was a hip issue this week with the Chargers. I haven't seen much yet on what it is or what the prognosis will be for it. So keep an eye out on that. Just because, again, Andy brought it up earlier in the show, Gerald Everett has been a really decent play. So it'll be interesting to see where does he go with this injury? And if Mike Williams starts coming back a little bit, does he maintain the volume that he was getting before? Does it help him maybe a little bit in efficiency? Because Mike Williams can also stretch the field, possibly pull the safeties back a little bit, give him some more room to work in between the linebackers and safeties. Probably more time than needed on Gerald Everett. But 2 big name guys going down. Zach Ertz is done for the season, opens the door for Trey McBride, and Dallas Goedert has a shoulder issue and is out, quote, an extended time. Both of these are just such hits to anybody's fantasy roster because usually you're not rostering multiple tight ends. But, man, is Trey McBride a go get now? If you were the Ertz guy, do you rush out and get Trey McBride? Is there another tight end there that you like more?
I think McBride is worth an overpay of your fab budget if that's the system you use in your leagues. It's one where if you're looking at it and you need a tight end down the stretch, I literally, as we're talking, I'm debating putting in a bid for Scott Fishbowl when I have Darren Waller and Gerald Everett, and I need someone to start. And Marquise Brown is out there, so it's Hopkins, Rondell Moore. You got to think teams are going to start game planning against Rondell Moore. Yeah, I think, and I always liked the talent of McBride coming out of school. I just thought that he was more of a project sitting behind Ertz, and tight ends typically need a few years to develop. Even look at Kelsey and Andrews and all them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I could see him being very deadly for fantasy down the stretch.
Yeah, I like McBride there as well. Mark Andrews looks like he could play week 11. So there we go. There's a little bit of good news. Isaiah likely, unless you have super deep benches or a very big dino league, you're probably going to be able to let likely walk if Mark Andrews is back, because I just don't see I don't see how he's going to get enough volume to be able to stay there in that tight end position. Not doubting his ability, but I just don't see where the Ravens throw the ball enough to start? And then is he going to get it if Mark Andrews is out there?
Yeah, I think at that point you're extremely touchdown dependent on someone like Likely.
Yeah.
Where if he gets in the end zone, nice start. If not, you're not going to get more than 3 or 4 points.
Mm-hmm. All right. A couple quarterback things, then we'll just do a few more if there's anybody we haven't touched on yet. PJ Walker is out week 11. Oh, now we get Baker Mayfield. Oh. And like PJ Walker had some exciting games, but he really wasn't that good either. And now we're back to Baker, and man, Carolina is they're putting on a display, I feel like, of how to tank. I feel like they could be doing a little bit better. They won 3 games, but they're a tough team to watch.
They're very brutal to watch. I hope from a player development standpoint that it's good for Terrence Marshall for 2023. He's showing some signs, but I'm not sure if he's even, startable or rosterable at this moment in more shallow leagues.
Mm-hmm.
That's about the only, DJ Moore, we all love the talent, just continues to not put up the wide receiver 1 upside that we wish from him, especially now that there's no Christian McCaffrey there. That was the lone bright spot that made it likable to watch a Panthers game for the longest time.
Yeah, absolutely. Moore was one of the guys that I was like, I feel good walking away with Moore. Like, he's been pretty much QB proof his entire career. Why not throw one more year of crappy quarterback play in there? And maybe Baker surprises me. And I was like, nope, Baker did not surprise me at all. It was exactly what I thought Baker was before. And it wasn't good, but
it's shocking that it happened in some ways, because Baker shows such signs of greatness, and then his bads are so bad that you just can't support it.
Yeah, the bads are real bad. All right, we already mentioned Stafford already in concussion protocol. Tannehill practices in full, expected to play Thursday night. And an interesting play, Jameis Winston could play week 11. Maybe the Dandy Alton, the Andy Dalton experience is over in New Orleans. It was anything but dandy, except for that 1 week that he threw 5 touchdowns. Other than that, it was another just kind of brutal experience there. I would be excited to see Jameis Winston come in. I don't know if I wouldn't put him as a playoff push type of guy.
No, it more affects the people around him, like guys like Chris Olave, and I got Olave on the Scott Fishbowl, and he'd be nice if he had a good week 11 for me.
Be very nice. Just gonna put that out there to the universe.
Olave might be the best rookie wide receiver in the class that has performed in a lot of ways, and Jameis has always had the upside. Before, the year, was it 2019 that he ended up like QB 1 or 2 with over 5,000 yards and some insane weeks in the playoffs. Like, he might have had
30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions. Yeah. 5,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions. Yep.
But it scored fantasy points.
Oh, yeah. It scored a lot of fantasy points.
That's how Matt Stafford was for the longest time. He didn't win NFL games, but he scored fantasy points.
That's true. And now he's not doing anything. But all right. So real quick before we jump into the fact attack, anybody that we kind of haven't touched on yet in terms of playoff push guys? I feel like a lot of my guys we kind of already took a shot on, but I got one I'm holding on to. I'm gonna let you go first as the guest though.
Yeah, so I wrote down 2 that we have not touched on, and they one of them might be yours. One is Odell Beckham. He's been talking with a bunch of teams, and the moment he's said he only wants to go play for a playoff contender, and it's a little bit of a risky move. He might not, you don't know what's going to happen. He might only get there. But if he has a few good weeks during the playoffs, that's the kind of thing that wins you leagues.
Yeah.
The other one, and I'll stay out of the politics or all of it, but Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
I think as soon as Deshaun Watson comes back, the last I remember him seeing on the field, he was electric. He ran the ball. He threw the ball. Like, he's one that I think could, if you are struggling for QB help and have a great roster, and he's not already rostered in your league, I think those are two guys that I should be owned, if not already are.
Yeah. And again, that's one of those things where if somebody's like, I'm not picking up that guy, that's cool. I don't need to stand on a soapbox and tell you what to think about allegations about a guy. But in terms of fantasy, I think you're spot on. Like, if you get past all of the other baggage that he brings along, he's a damn good NFL quarterback and good for fantasy as well. I don't know if it's my Cowboys homerism impacting my bias here. I don't know if I can get behind the Odell one. I totally agree with the mentality of it. Makes complete sense. It's one of those, like, you know what? I'm going to swing away, and if he gets picked up and I hit, and it's going to be something good. I get that mentality. I don't know. I don't know what he's going to bring to an actual NFL team, and even less what he's going to bring to a fantasy team. But with Odell, and I feel like this has been the saying for Odell for years. With Odell, you get a 3-yard slant, and he can split the safeties and be gone.
Look at what Julio Jones did this past weekend on that one run right to the pylon. Yep. Like, I didn't even realize it was Julio, and I was like, oh wow, that's the player we all thought he was going to be when he got to Tampa Bay.
Yeah,
and it only takes. He's not gonna be your star on a fantasy like playoff team. But if you're looking for that one last wide receiver 3 flex play guy that's, kind of a little bit of a risk it move, I could see him needing, for a depth piece. That's all.
Yeah. No, I like that a lot. I'm actually going to go ahead and throw 2 names out here because I think there's one that I've heard, and I want to get your take on it as well. I like having multiple perspectives.
Of course.
There's one guy that I think is a trap, especially a trap moving into the playoffs, and that's Kyren Williams. I'm not buying into Kyren Williams right now. I think he is. I agree. I think he's a slow, small back. Like, I feel like that's what everybody's description of him is, that he is just kind of a slower, smaller back, and I don't like it. I don't see it, and I especially don't see it with. I don't see it with this backfield. I don't see it with, like, I don't know. Help me understand why people might want another Rams running back. Is it just dissatisfaction with Henderson and Akers that they're like, screw it, I want the next one. I don't even care who it is, just the next one.
Did you see the video in practice of him next to Akers?
Mm-mm.
There was a video of them going back and forth, and it was like, tell who's the stud, and it was Kyren Williams. It was a complete, like, practice hype video where he looked faster than Akers. As we alluded to earlier, I'm avoiding the Rams offense as much as I can, with the exception of a need piece. But if you don't need a running back, and I would hope that if you're team, unless you put the whole 0 RB strategy this year and desperately needed a running back, I would avoid Kyren Williams. I don't see him being someone that scores more than 10 fantasy points in the game, and at that point you're lucky, because he probably caught 2 passes and one of them got to him in the end zone. I don't see him as somebody who does anything more. And I do agree he's a trap, people are praising him on Twitter. I saw him in a trade in one of my leagues earlier today where it was Metcalf, Jacoby Myers, and some fab for Sutton. I think it was Sutton, Godwin, and Kyron Williams or something. And I was like, I would much rather have the God. Well, I'd much rather have Metcalf at this point. I think Metcalf looks good.
Yeah, Metcalf does look good.
And Kyron Williams, to me, I was like, he's maybe worth $10 worth of fab. That's when I was like breaking down the trade to someone. I was like, that's how I put it. He's $10 worth of fab. If you need a running back, that's it. But other than that, you can't really expect much, and you could expect to maybe put him back onto the waiver wire.
Yeah, and this is one of those things where, like, if I get surprised, I'm all for it. Go out there, young man, and surprise me. I'll be happy regardless. I don't see it, and I think that the key piece is that Rams backfield. One guy that I will throw out there that two that I think are more deeper kind of playoff push type of guys that are probably going to be available in your leagues. One may not be available after the Eno Benjamin news, but that is Keontae Ingram. I was on Keontae Ingram in the preseason. I had to fade a little bit because Eno came in and Eno became the kind of next man up. But then Keontae had some really good run when James Conner was out. Yes, it was overshadowed by Eno, but the coaches must think, or something else happened in that locker room, in that organization, that they just waived Eno. I can't figure out why they just let Eno go the way that they did. Unless there's something contractual that I'm overlooking. I don't see how they just let him go. But what that does is that opens the door for Keontae to just step in if James Conner, who has not been the most durable individual throughout his playing career. Granted, he's already missed a few weeks this year. Maybe that he's filled his quota of missed weeks this season, so he won't miss any more. Maybe that's how it works. But if Conner misses any time, it looks like the coaching staff is fully on board with just pushing Keontae Ingram into that role and letting him run. And to me, that's one of those opportunities where he went from the third guy on the roster to now the second guy. And most people are probably not going to reach for him because James Conner is just getting healthy and just getting back into, that workhorse role. But if something were to happen, boom, he's already right there. I think I don't want to make this a my point versus your point thing, but I like doing that more than like the free agent type of piece, because not only does he need to get picked up by a team, you need to hope that he works with the offense and then gets into that role also, where Keontae is already in the offense.
I love everything about what you just said, and I completely agree with that. And before we were actually going, I was writing some notes in my phone, and then we sat down and I started scribbling in my notebook. And Odell was on my notebook, and Keontae wasn't, but Keontae was in my phone, and Odell wasn't. And I was like, that is a absolutely great pick. That is someone where you're just waiting for an opportunity. Suddenly you get it. You get a few big games, and you're making that playoff push and winning. And, we're playing here to win championships. It's very, very much a good, especially if you need a running back. Running backs are at a premium this time of year. Someone's going to get banged up. I feel like with James Conner, again, I was in him year one where he was very successful with me in a bunch of leagues. And then ever since he's been consistently kind of hurt.
Yeah.
And even last year when he was doing incredibly well, it was when's the injury going to happen? And you hate to speculate that. I hate to play like that. But you also have the safety net. You got a couple extra roster spots. And Ingram is probably in most waiver pools out there right now.
Yeah, I would say so. And he may not be, depending on how long you wait. So I like the shot on him. And then one last one. super, super deep. This is like if you have plenty of space on your roster, this may be a just write the name down either in your notebook or in your phone or whatever way you write your names down. Malik Davis for the Cowboys. Yes, it looks like Zeke is coming back a little bit. Yes, Pollard is the second guy, but Malik Davis has looked really good in splitting carries with Pollard. And yes, Pollard gets all the shine. And deservedly so. He had a 3-touchdown game. He had a touchdown this past week. Like he deserves the shine. He's doing really well. One of the things that I've always been reluctant with Pollard with though is in the past Zeke is the workhorse. Like he's going to touch the ball 95% of the time, and maybe Pollard gets a few scraps. I feel like the Cowboys are not going to do that with Pollard, and I don't see Pollard as that back that is built to be able to touch the ball 95% of the time for an extended amount of time. Can we get a week of that? Sure. Can we maybe get back-to-back weeks of that? Sure. But I don't think he's built to be able to withstand that long term. So I think Malik Davis can step in if, again, this is thinking deep.
It's a really deep call. I like it, though. Is that line set up for him to actually score fantasy points, and does the talent there? I will say, and I'll admit, I have not watched enough of his tape to have a good call out, but I love how deep you just got there, Seth. That's cool.
Well, I like we joked about before the show, the classic Twitter trope is anytime you put a guy out there, somebody without fail is going to go, what type of league are you playing in? What type of suckers is in that league? Because he's been claimed since the draft. I drafted him. And it's like, okay, that's your one league, dude. Like, and yes, there's the ultra competitive ones, and then there's not the competitive ones. And listen, like we're putting stuff out there. It's like if he's owned in your roster, okay. Or owned in your league, okay. Keep it moving.
But exactly. Like I'm, as I said, I'm not that familiar with Malik Davis. I'm probably going to go check my 30 dynasty and rosters and see if he's out there in any free agent waiver wires tonight.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, he's only touched the ball. He touched the ball 5 times for 38 yards in the Green Bay game, and that was splitting work with Tony Pollard. He didn't get any work in the receiving game, but in the rushing game, he got almost a fifth of the touches, which is about 20% of the rushing attempts. I think if Zeke were out long term, I think you could see that kind of – I don't think it's going to be a 50-50 or maybe even a 60-40 split. Like that's what you would be hoping for. But this could be like – it could be enough of a bang type of play that, like I said, he's a deep option there. And he just – like when he touches the ball, he looks like he's shot out of a cannon.
That's honestly from the one search I just did in a competitive – 12-man super flex dynasty league with 30-man rosters. He's on the waiver wire.
Yeah.
Like it's, okay. I think on Sleeper, let me see what is his ownership percentages. He's owning 6% of leagues on Sleeper.
Okay. So there we go. If you're in those 6% of leagues, good for you. I don't know what else to tell you. I don't know if I can get because I'm in a Devy league on Sleeper. They don't have the Devy players, so we legit have retired players on our roster. So even if you like put out a retired player, we would still have like 0.1% rostered. Sorry, sir. What type of league are you playing in that you don't have this old retired quarterback rostered?
I have that with, I have Devy leagues. The only Devy league I have is on MFL, but it's high school players and college players and as deep as you can imagine. And somebody's probably owned across the board. And I usually will go to the commission and ask, but reality is there's a lot of leagues out there where Rashad White is out there on the waiver wire and he needs to be picked up right now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree. Yeah, so Mike Davis is at 4.7 yards a carry, 13 attempts, 61 yards on the ground, and 2 catches on 2 targets for 18 yards. So he looks pretty good when he's touching the ball. It would just be a matter of like, does he get the opportunity to touch the ball? All right. So first time. We're going to jump into it.
Yeah.
The fantasy fact. Are you
Let's do
ready?
it.
All
I'm
right.
pumped. Let's do it.
This is one of my favorite drops I've ever created. Nice. I'm gonna make sure I turn the volume up for it. It just makes me laugh. All right, there we go. The fact attack starts right now. 5 minutes go on the clock. I got a whole bunch of Twitter tweets. I got a whole bunch of tweets all about fantasy questions here. I'm going to drop 5 minutes on my timer right now. I'm going to start it after I finish reading the first one off. We're going to see if we can rapid fire through a bunch of them, okay?
Let's do it.
All right, so we're going to start redraft. 10th place team gets wide receiver 12, wide receiver 21, RB 25. Second place team gets RB 4 before the week 10 games. Commissioner called for collusion and vetoed it. Does this trade on paper seem unfair? So they don't give us any of the actual players, just their ranks. Does it seem unfair? And would this count as collusion in your eyes?
My opinion, I'm anti-collusion unless there, are texts and things going back and forth of saying that we're going to give you stuff. That's my opinion. I think that you should. It seems fair enough where someone needs depth, someone wants a stud.
Yeah, and I mean, it looks like Nick Chubb, maybe Derrick Henry, maybe Saquon. They're all in that 3, 4, 5 range. Would be there. If I'm getting one of those guys back, yeah, I'd throw guys like, wide receiver 21 and 25. That's like Tyler Boyd, Devonta Smith. Like, yeah, like, no, I would gladly make a trade like that to move that far up into that upper echelon of running back.
I think they're saying isn't the guy selling the running back at number 10 team?
Well, the 10th place team, yeah, the guy in 10th place is giving the second place team the RB4, but he's getting wide receiver 12, wide receiver 21, and RB 25, a wide receiver 12.
Yeah, no, I think you're getting You're getting 3 startable players for a stud, and if you're the one going for the title, the other one's trying to make the playoffs.
Yeah, and maybe that's Mike Evans, maybe McLaurin, maybe Chase. So
I think I think
it's fair enough.
That's so far from collusion. There's way worse trades that have happened, and you never know what's going to happen once the deal's done.
Yep. All right. Moving on to the next one. We have at Phil for Fantasy 10 team 0.5 PPR Superflex Dynasty win now trade because we're all about the playoffs right now. Give Justin Herbert, DK Metcalf, and Jerry Jeudy. Get Pat Mahomes, Chris Godwin, Matt Ryan, and Raheem Mostert. So Superflex 0.5 PPR.
Can you repeat that one more time just so I have it
down? So you have Herbert, Metcalf, Jeudy is one side. The other side, Mahomes, Godwin, Matt Ryan, and Raheem Mostert.
I'm assuming redraft as well, right? So, but it's Superflex.
Dynasty. Superflex Dynasty.
Wow, that's a monster trade then. Okay, so Mahomes and Herbert, I consider that kind of a wash. If you consider Godwin and Matt Ryan for Metcalf, and then Mostert and Jeudy, I'd probably rather have Jeudy, but Mostert's the one scoring points. I'd rather have the 2 quarterbacks personally. I think having more quarterbacks in Superflex is king in Dynasty.
Yeah, I'm gonna lean slightly the other way. Because I don't think Matt Ryan has much left in the tank, despite him coming back and Jeff Saturday getting his win. Like I did say last Tuesday, I was like, I think Jeff Saturday may have a chance. I wish I put money on it, damn it. But
I did bet that game.
good. Hopefully it was you bet the Colts to win.
Yep, I did.
All right, good man. I think I would go with Herbert, DK, and Judy because I don't think Matt Ryan gets you much moving forward. And if you're in a win, even if you're a win now,
Judy's hurt though.
Judy is hurt, but you still have Herbert, Metcalf. I just don't like the mortgaging your future that much to get a guy like Mostert and Matt Ryan. I just feel like you're not getting enough bang for your buck back for what Judy should be. All right,
I think Judy has no value though right now. I think his value is like significantly lower than it was draft time. The one whose value could skyrocket is Metcalf, assuming it's a good quarterback. Yeah. But we can go to the next question.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right. Comment came in during the FAC attack. Good for you, Jim. 896. Full PPR start 3. Higbee, Boyd, Lazard, DeOnta Foreman, and DJ Moore. I don't know if I would do this, but I really feel like Higbee's in the conversation there just because he's been such a safety blanket. But that with Matt Stafford out, I don't know if I would do that. I think DeOnta Foreman is definitely in the lineup there.
I would agree. Yeah.
I think Lazard is probably in your lineup there. And I think the big question becomes DJ Moore or Tyler Boyd. And I think it might be Boyd. Because Moore has just been such a letdown. And with Baker,
yeah, I think Boyd with Chase out can just go like he can be very high. Yeah. Like he has my initial thought was Foreman for sure, Boyd for sure, and then I was between Lazard and Higbee. I just have no confidence with Baker and DJ Moore. Like he might get you 10 points, but he's not going to get you 18.
Yeah. I think that I was in the same spot. And as much as I like Higbee too, he's been a fine tight end play. If you're starting these guys, I'm assuming like in a flex type of thing. I think I'm right on the same page with you, Andy, where it's Boyd, it's Lazard, and it's Foreman, and the most confidence around like Foreman for both of us.
Absolutely. Foreman's been a great play throughout this season.
Yeah, I concur. All right, we're gonna throw one last one in there because I opened like 6 of them and we only did like 2 because I probably talked too much. All right, let me see. Let me find one more good one. All right, here is a good one. Should be relatively quick, but not that fast. Half PPR redraft. Kenny Walker and A-Rob, which ties into what we were talking about earlier today. For Swift, Jamal Williams, and Tony. I don't know if I'll ever be able to say his name without saying Tony.
I have this in my, like, I would consider my like first ever dynasty league where I have Swift and Williams, and I hate the trying to pick one. I lost last night. I have Kyler Burrow. I'm going on a tangent here, but I have Kyler and Burrow as my 2 quarterbacks in Superflex. Kyler was inactive. Burrow was there. So I was projected to win by 50 points, and I go no quarterback for the week. I put in Sam Howell. Last night, I had A.J. Brown. He had McLaurin. I was up by 18 points, and I lost by 1.8. And if I would have started Jamal Williams over Swift, I would have won.
Yeah.
And if I would have started Foreman on my bench over Juju, I would have won. So I'm in these like sit-start decisions that I truly don't love. Yeah. So it's a weird one where Walker is an immediate start every week. Do you want to play the Swift-William games?
Yeah. Real quick. Thanks to you, Jim. Lawrence and Kirk on bye, so shallow. That's a pretty good setup then if you have Kirk, Foreman, Lazard, Boyd, and even maybe we get some magic out of DJ Moore and Baker the second time around. Who knows? But for me, I think I lean towards the. I think it's one. Every trade is league dependent, roster construction dependent. I'm going to throw that disclaimer out there now.
Yeah.
But right now, I'm getting a starting running back between Swift and Jamal Williams. One of them is a starter.
Sure.
I am going to have to kind of go back and forth and hope I pick the right guy, but one of them is a starting running back, and Tony looks like he's going to be a starting wide receiver. Whereas on the flip side, I have Kenny Walker, who's essentially an auto start running back right now, and then A-Rob, who you probably could have picked him out of the garbage bin a week or two ago. Like he was on waivers in leagues that I've been in because he's been so atrocious. So does the Cooper Kupp injury suddenly elevate A-Rob to a spot where I want to trade for him? I don't think so. So I'm leaning the 3P, even though Kenny Walker, if I need one running back, if I am like that one running back away, and I can make this deal for Swift and Jamal, who granted like the two halves kind of make a whole.
Sure. Yeah.
And Tony, who looks like he's going to be good, but also like that the Chiefs do spread it around. And his boom game came when Juju got knocked unconscious in what was it, like the second half. Like if I can,
first half, I think
was it the? Sorry, that's what I meant. The first half, second quarter, I thought it was. Yeah, something like that. But if I'm like that one running back away, I love this trade for me getting Kenneth Walker. If I'm trying to build if I have like a bunch of holes to fill, I'd rather take the Swift Williams Tony one because I feel like I'm gonna get at least two playable guys out of that. A-Rob's not playable to me.
Yes, he's not playable. In principle, I'm somebody who likes to consolidate assets to get a more premium player. Where that trade we were reviewing earlier was, wide receiver 12, 21, 25, and getting the running back 4. I'm usually the guy that wants that running back 4 and wants it. And so the more I'm thinking about this deal as we keep talking about it, and to get the Swift Williams Tooney, and you get Walker, who in the last, I have to look at the exact stats, but in the last like 5-6 weeks, he's been a top 7 running back consistently. He's just firing it off. And like I'm a Michigan fan as well. I watched him put up 5 touchdowns again when he was at Michigan State. I think Walker was a beast. He just needed opportunity. It's hard not to think that he could ride teams to championships for the rest of the season. So that's my overarching like trade principle. But there's times where you make deals where you have to give up the stud to get depth to be able to continue to field a lineup.
Yeah.
So if you're able to make that, and let's just think of it this way: Walker for Swift, Williams, and Tooney. A-Rob's a throw-in. A-Rob is like the add-on, not significant piece of it. Tooney doesn't have that much value. I would say he has more upside, but it's a good question, though.
No, I think it's a great question, and that's where, again, I can make the argument for both sides of that trade. Yeah. And again, like I said, if I'm in a situation where I'm like, I'm just that one guy away, like maybe I'm in a situation where, I'm a Zeke owner or I'm a Fournette owner, and they were guys that I was kind of putting in there, or maybe like I'm a Najee owner, and I can get Kenneth Walker to kind of like solidify my squad to get ready for the playoffs. Like I love that trade for that side. And just to back up the numbers with it, since week 5, Walker has been 14.8, 19, 28.7, 12.2, 27.9, 13.2. If he keeps going in this way, he'll have another almost just shy of 30-point game this week. So there you go. That's how projections work. All right.
Yeah, it's just you just escalate it back and forth.
Yeah.
Oh, we got
One
Darius
final
Brown.
one. Yep. Darius Brown. Trade AJ Waddle or D Hop for ETN. Ooh.
If you got that wide receiver core and you need a running back to solidify the playoff push, and you got the depth, you can always find wide receivers on the waiver wire much easier than running backs, and ETN looks good. That's my opinion. What do you think, Seth?
Yeah, I think it would be really interesting to see one if it's start 2 wide receivers. I love this trade. If it's one of those leagues where you start 2 wide receivers, absolutely, I would do this trade because you can always find that flexible guy either at the running back position or the wide receiver position. If it's start 3, it'd be interesting to see who that third wide receiver option would be in there. But I would be really interested in getting ETN because ETN has, like you said, he's looked really good. And right now you're looking for those running backs that you can just go, this is my running back. He's in my roster. He's not moving. He's staying in the starting spot, and away we go. Let's make this run to the chip. So I like that. I like that approach.
That's very much
All right.
Oh, I got one other question. Of the 3, which would you most be willing to give up?
That's a really good question. Oh, there we go. So he just threw in there a little bit more. It's 3 wide receivers. He has Juju as the 4th guy, and we'll spend Fab for Christian Watson. I mean, Watson looked phenomenal. He torched my Cowboys defense, but that's all right. Yeah, I think it would be. Oh man, I think it might be AJ Brown for me. Because D Hop is like D Hop gets like 10 receptions a game. Like that floor is just absolutely like solidified. Like he's getting that many receptions, it seems like every game. But man, that's a really good one. Like I'm not sure. It's a great position to be in for Darius Brown.
I think if you're
Darius right now, like that's tough.
I think if you're Darius Brown, it's pretty much whatever one of them wants. You know, whatever gets it done, or if you can get another throw-in to add on to the package with ETN plus of a middling wide receiver you like.
Yeah, man, that's tough because
I think it's really hard.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually slightly surprised. I knew AJ Brown was having a good year also, but he's right now wide receiver 9 in PPR. Waddle is 6. And granted, this is just total scoring at the moment, but what's his name? D Hop's not going to be up there because he hasn't played most of the games. But I mean, if you look at points per game, which again, average whatever, we talked about it a little bit before game, but Hopkins is wide receiver 5, Waddle is 9, and AJ Brown is 12. So and Hopkins is over 20 points per game right now. So
wow.
That's where I wouldn't want to lose that. I think it would be AJ Brown for me. But man, that's a great situation. Good for you, Darius.
Yeah, that's
good drafting on you, sir. And to have Juju too, because Juju was one of those guys where I was like, I think he's just going to be really good. So, really nice drafted for you there. All right, we're going to wrap it up because we just hit like an hour and 30. Usually we try and do an hour. We're like 30 minutes over.
Sorry, Seth, I can talk a lot too.
I was going to say, I think I've hit that realization that I can talk a lot. But thank you, Andy, for jumping on the show. Andy is going to be. We're going to make it happen. Andy, you're going to start producing content in the next year. We're gonna make that happen for you. What do you think?
Absolutely. We're going to make some content. I'm very much excited to get into the realm. I do my Twitter. I should have led with that on my display name. It's at Trip Andy, first name, last name. And really appreciate you having me on here, Seth, tonight. It's been a pleasure just talking some football, talking some sports. Thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Be sure to, jump in any time in the future. All right. So real quick, gonna pay the bills. Make sure you use the promo code FACTS. That's FAQS at Fantasy Data. When I was reading off the numbers of where people were, that's the Fantasy Data site right there on my other monitor. Use the promo code FACTS at fantasydata.com. Receive 20% off your subscription. It is a great spot to get all your data and analytics. Use the promo code FACTS, that's FAQS. It's the same one. We try to make it easy for you at Underdog for a 100% deposit match up to $100 on your first deposit. It is great for pick'em, daily drafts, all different sports. It is a great time. If you're not on Underdog, make sure you check that out. And finally, Andy told you where to follow him. Make sure you go do that. Follow the show while you're at it at the Fantasy Facts, and give me a follow at FF the At Home Dad. And with that, catch you on the flip side.